hapon po sa inyong lahat, o 'di ba? The show just started. Magandang hapon po and welcome to today's webinar for our parents. Hello everybody. My name is Joyce Spring Trevino and I'm your host for today. Kamusta naman po tayo? Nakikita ko po na marami na kayo na nanonood and in the comment section. So I hope you guys are ready for today's webinar. Hello po sa ating mga audience ngayon na nanonood at kanina pa naghihintay for our webinar to start. I'm really so excited dahil alam naman po natin na kakaiba na ang new normal natin ngayon, and it's always so important to keep informed, to stay informed with everything that's happening, especially now that we're ushering in a new year for the school year. So again, I hope you are joining us from the safety of your homes. I hope that you are healthy as well, and sana po ready na kayo for our program for today. Now, as we know, some private schools have already started their online classes and some will begin next week. Pero last week po, in-announce ng Department of Education na ang opening of classes for public schools will be in October. I don't know about you guys, pero para sa akin po, I feel like this is actually an opportunity for us to get even more ready for this school year. Not just for our teachers and our students, pero syempre, para sa mga parents na rin natin, katulad ng mga nanonood ngayong hapon na to. Hello po to everyone. Ako, ang daming nagko-comment sa ating social media accounts. I hope you're ready for this afternoon. So please do stay tuned because we have this afternoon a string of relevant and helpful presentations that parents can learn from. We know that students are now receiving their lessons online. Kaya naman po ang ating mga bahay, our homes, have now become a new learning space. So it is equally important to equip our parents with tips and tools in navigating distance learning. I'm so excited dahil ang dami po nating speakers this afternoon from whom we can learn. So kung meron po kayong mga questions, pwede nyo isend sa ating chat box para mamaya baka pwedeng paunlakan ng ating mga speakers ang inyong mga katanungan. Salamat po muli for joining us here this afternoon. I think we're ready to get this started. Here to introduce and talk about G Suite Primer for parents, we have Google Certified Educator Levels 1 and 2 and Google Certified Trainer and Innovator, Gary Garcia. Gary.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar for today. I'm so excited to share my expertise, my experience with other parents. Yeah.
Hi, Sir Gary. So excited for your presentation. Go ahead.
Okay, so for this session, we're going to talk about, I'll be giving some guidelines for parents in the new normal and some Google Tech Toolkit for families and guardians. Marami po kasing dapat tayong ihanda, lalong-lalo na sa bahay kasi po yan po yung bagong normal ng classroom, ano? So let's start with the first one. Let's start with our role as parents, As parents, we have a crucial role in the learning process of our children, especially in this time of pandemic. Yung boundaries po between home and school is no longer there. Nawala na po siya, no? Dati po, madaling mag-switch mode, student mode ang estudyante, ang mga anak natin, kapag sasakay na po sila ng sasakyan or papasok na po sila sa eskwelahan. Ngayon po, wala na po yun. Our living environment and the learning environment of our children are now merged into one space. So dito po, itong isang bagay lang po na ito ay malaki na pong challenge para sa mga bata sa pag-a-adjust sa new normal classroom. Now, with these boundaries, with our space, we have to make it work. We have to make it work. Whatever we have, kung maliit man po yan o malaki, we have to make it work to accommodate the learning from home mode of education. Now, before I continue, I'd like to remind other parents that we are the first teacher of our children. Ano po? Our value system matters and it must be in place. Kasi po, para matulungan po natin ang ating anak ng maayos, kailangan po ay nandiyan na po yung ating value system. Kasi po, malaking bagay meron po tayong kasabihan noon na ang ginagawa ng matanda ay gagayahin ng bata. Take note. Kaya ko po nasabi ito kasi po ang learning environment ngayon ng bata ay hindi na eskwelahan kundi ang atin pong tahanan. Meron po tayong mga kasamang matatanda, ano? So kaya ko po shinare yung isang quotation na ang ginagawa ng matatanda ay gagayahin ng bata. Matagal na po nating narinig yan, lalo na po yung mga siguro age ko. Um, Tignan po natin yung paligid natin because our home is the learning environment. I'd like to stress it out. Our home is the learning environment of our children. So we have we have to check ano ba nakikita ng anak natin sa bahay, no? So now, since they are at home, we have become the default learning facilitators, okay? While at the same time providing psychological support for them. Pati po yung guidance office, tayo na rin ngayon. Ano? Kung dati nakikipag-usap lang tayo sa ating class advisor ng ating anak, ngayon po tayo rin, tapos sa guidance office or sa guidance counselor, ngayon po tayo rin yung role na yun. No? So, ang isang bagay po dito, we may or may not be equipped to perform this role, but we have to take care of our children. At the same time, take care of ourselves. So bilang magulang, very challenging din po ito para sa atin. Kasi po tayo ang teacher din, partly tayo po ang teacher, partly tayo po ang guidance counselor, at kailangan pa rin po nating intindihin yung ating mga concern bilang magulang. Kasi po yung iba po nawalan ng trabaho, working from home, o nawalan ng trabaho ang isa sa dalawa. No? So medyo stressful itong oras na to. So but we have to make it work for our children. We as adults, tayo po yung dapat mag-adjust ng mas malaki para magabayan po natin ng tama ang ating mga anak. Now, as one of our role is to, we can now teach life skills at this time. So life skills can be taught at this time in our lives. Paano po ito? Let our children feel that they are trusted by giving them responsibilities at home. Let them know that yung mga binigay natin sa kanilang mga tasks, may importante yun kasi makakatulong natin sila. Kasi yung responsibilities, pwede natin ituro. So when we give them responsibility, we can teach them the value of time and time management, which we have to model ourselves. Ano? Dapat po nagagawa din natin yun. Kaso nga lang po, pag nasa bahay nga tayo, iba yung mode natin. Relax mode, pahinga mode, no? Mas mahirap po yan para sa ating mga anak. Yan po yung ating dapat ituro ngayon, yung time management. Because our kids will study at home, they will listen to their teachers in the monitor, in the computer, no? So let our kids do some household chores. Let them, ito po yung mga bagay na pwede nating ipagawa sa mga bata. Let them fix their bed, no? Marami pong oras ngayon maglinis ng kwarto, mag-prepare ng dining table, paghugasin po natin ng mga pinggan pagkatapos pong kumain. Kasi po, these tasks cannot be taught in school. Kahit po normal yung dating environment natin, there are tasks that we have to give our kids. Kasi po, yung responsibility, yung paglilinis ng bahay, yung pagluluto, yung paghugas ng pinggan, may mga values pong tinuturo yan sa atin. Alam po natin na yan po ay sinasabi sa eskwela, tinuturo. Pero kung hindi po natin i-implement sa bahay, hindi po matututunan ng ating anak yan. So now we can teach them these life skills. Okay? Pero ito po ay age-appropriate task po. Depende po yan sa age. But remember, our kids are never too young to help at home. So life skills can be taught at this time. Life skills can be developed at this time. For example po, yung simpleng painting. Oy, kumupas na yung pintura sa harapan ng bahay. So you can do some painting, ano? So sila tatay at si mga anak pwede nang mag-painting. So hindi lang po kailangan, let them express their creativity through painting. So bayaan nyo na pong iba't ibang kulay ng wall niyo, at least alam nila sila nagpinta ng pintura ng bahay niyo, no? So or simple carpentry. O kaya yung pagpapalit po ng light bulbs, ano? Pwede natin ituro yan sa ating mga anak, babae man lalaki kasi napakadali lang po niyan. O kaya po sa kusina, baking, ano? Baking, or cooking, ano po? O magsaing, ayan. O magprito ng itlog, o kaya susunod niyan, maggawa na ng menudo. O yung simpleng pagtatanim, ano po? Kasi po ngayon, hindi natin alam kung saan nanggagaling yung ating mga kinakain. So yung mga maliliit na bagay o yung mga, hindi po maliliit na bagay, kundi yung mga bagay, simpleng bagay na pwede natin magawa sa bahay para matutunan ng ating mga anak. For example nga po, pagtatanim. integrated na po yan sa science. Yung pagbe-bake, yung pagluluto, integrated po yan sa science and math kasi measurement. So ito po ay life skills. Ano? So life skills can be taught at this time in our lives. Now, aside from that, we have to prepare for our children the learning environment. So the learning environment means it's a physical space at home, at the same time a social interaction at home. Yung a place, marami pong dapat i-consider. So physical space at home, hindi po yan, pwede pong sa sala. Okay? Sa sala po natin. Pero kung sa sala po yan, meron po mga requirement. So, an ideal learning environment should be, at times, may dapat po may tahimik, hindi po yung laging maingay. Kasi, learning environment po ito, makikinig sila kay teacher, dapat po ay walang, free from noise, free from traffic, free from external, yung mga bagay na hindi makokontrol ng anak ninyo, i-control po natin yung ingay, yung mga walang mga istorbo, bilang magulang po, baka mamaya nagiging at-is tayo na, anak, tulungan mo ako dito. Nakikinig pala siya kay teacher sa klase, no? So, kasi baka, pwede tayo mag-provide ng earphone, ng laptop o desktop. Ito po yung mga simpleng requirement sa isang learning environment. Sana po meron tayong strong internet signal. Isa pa po ay para dun sa mga bata naman po, sa mga toddler na hindi pa marunong gumamit ng computer nila, mas maganda po kung merong adult supervision, yung para mag-on lang ng microphone or mag-mute ng microphone. Yun po ay mga simpleng bagay na pwede nating tulungan ng ating mga anak. Depende po yan sa age, ano? So, time management, yan po dapat nating ituro. Responsibilities, together with this learning environment. So, paano po natin gagawin itong mga to? Mga simpleng bagay na ito. We have to establish a routine, a schedule with our children. So paano po ito? Pwede itong daily, pwede itong weekly, depende po yan sa age ng ating anak. Pwede niyo pong gamitin gumawa kayo ng to-do list. Yung mga simpleng, anak, ito, listahan natin, ilagay niyo sa wall, checkan niyo na lang, para, anak, nagawa mo na ba yung mga inuutos ko sa'yo? Ayan, ganyan. So yung, hindi lang sa kanya nang gagaling, kundi, pag-usapan niyo yan, let's say on a Sunday, anak, tingnan niyo yung calendar natin galing sa teacher niyo. Ito daw yung gagawin niyo. So, ilista niyo na lahat. So, you can put it in a calendar. You can use a calendar or, very simple, the Google Keep. So, yan po nasa screen natin ngayon ay si Google Keep. So, you can create a list of things to do. And then, sa mobile phone po natin, you can use Google Keep and then share it with your child or your children. And then, i-check nyo lang po yan. Tapos i-share nyo sa inyong mga anak. Ayan po, no? Tapos makikita nyo later on kung ano yung hindi pa naka-check. So, ayan po, no? So, to-do list, a simple to-do list. And then, when you're done, pwede po nalang i-check. Iyan po ay para sa mga may medyo marunong gumamit ng technology. Paano naman po para sa mga bata pa, no? You can create a to-do list, pero medyo graphical po, visual. Halimbawa po, mag-toothbrush, so may toothbrush at toothpaste. So may dalawang column, to do at saka done. O kaya pwede may check mark lang. So yan po yung mga simpleng bagay para mag-build natin yung routine. So especially, merong morning, afternoon, at saka yung late afternoon or evening na to-do list. Ano po? So para hindi nila masyadong paghalu-haluin. Pero may mga bagay na dapat ginagawa na sa umaga pala. So yan po, you can use Google Keep. Now, alam mo po, sa paggamit ng technology, kasi magiging online class na nga po, marami pong concern ng mga parents na paano ba yan, secure ba yan? So, ang ating pong mga anak ay bibigyan ng, pwede po natin gamitin yung Family Link app na pwede niyo pong makita, ma-supervise ang inyong anak kung ano po ang ginagawa nila sa kanilang mga devices kapag meron po silang mga devices, sa tablet po nila o kaya sa kanilang pong mga smartphone. So you can go to Google Play Store, look for Family Link app. Yan po ay makakatulong para mapanatag yung mga magulang na paano kayo supervise ang anak ko. Nasa office kayo, kung pumapasok kayo, you can make use of this app. It's very easy to set up. Okay, so we have to make sure that our children are using secure devices and updated, and hopefully it's free from virus. So, yan po, while protecting their learning environment, their online learning environment. Okay? So kanina nga po, sabi ko, si Google Calendar. Pwede rin si to-do list. But si Google Calendar po, we can regularly review activities and support the adherence to deadlines. Yung mga anak po natin ay bibigyan ng G Suite for Education account. Ngayon po si teacher, gagawa po yan ng mga assignments at nandyan, ilalagay po yan sa Google Classroom. Pag meron po mga deadline na sinet si teacher, magre-reflect po yan automatic sa Google Calendar. So, Google Calendar affords us an overview of the months or weekly schedule of our kids. So, they will be supplied with a G Suite account. So, you can check them. So, para you have this opportunity to talk more to your children. So, para maplano nyo na po, anak, ano ba yung gagawin natin? So, ito po ay pwede nyo nang gawin using Google Calendar and the Google Keep. Okay? So, para madiskartehan niyo po, ano ba yung kailangan nating bilhin? Kung wala tayo sa bahay, kung wala kayo sa bahay, ano yung mga kailangan yung bilhin na gamit para makagawa naman ng task o magawa ng ating mga anak yung mga dapat na gawin sa eskwelahan. Okay po? So, you can make use of Google Calendar. So, para mas strategize ninyo yung mga dapat ninyong gawin sa inyong bahay. Okay. Next. Now, sometimes we need to talk to to the teachers, to the teachers or the school admin. You can communicate with the teachers whenever necessary. For example, hindi nyo alam kung anong gagawin or paano, hindi nyo naintindihan yung isang lesson. So you can use Gmail to talk to them. You can use chat, or you can if you want to talk to them face to face, you can also make use of Google Meet. So Google offers several tools to facilitate communication with our children's teachers and the school itself. So I hope you're familiar with Gmail. So hindi lang po yun, meron din pong chat dyan at meron pong Google Meet. So si Google Meet po, I assume that most of the schools or all of the schools will be using Google Meet for a secure online learning environment. Yan po. So you can make use of all this. No? Next one will be bilang magulang, marami po tayong hindi pa alam siguro, no? So, how can we make sure that our children are safe when they go online? So, ito pong link na pinaprovide ko, bit.ly/gfamilyguide. It is a tool, a document prepared or a curriculum or a PDF file given by Google to teach us what to do at home, mga simple activities. For example po, how can we teach them to make sure that they are using a secure password? So let's have an exercise po, So let's have an exercise on how to create a strong password for our kids. Pati po sa atin, baka tingnan nyo kung strong po yung ating password. So think of a word that is 8 characters or longer. So in my case, for example, the word generosity. Think of a word. So at least 8 characters or longer. To make it strong, make it a strong password, combine it with uppercase and lowercase. So for example, gawin ko lang capital is, yung gawin kong uppercase is yung letter G, the first letter. So it's okay now to have, it's now a combination of uppercase and lowercase characters. To make it stronger, we have to combine it with numbers. So for example, yung letter E, tsaka yung letter O, papalitan ko ng 3 at papalitan ko ng 0 to make it stronger. And then to make it even more stronger, we can combine it with special characters. So, yung generosity natin kanina, pag kinumbine natin sa uppercase letters and pinalitan natin yung ibang letters ng numbers at special characters, yung generosity natin ay magiging generosity pa rin, pero mas strong na yung password na yan. Because it's combined with letters, numbers, special characters, and uppercase and lowercase. So these are some of the things that you can learn when you visit bit.ly/gfamilyguide. Now, recently, Google released a Google Tech Toolkit for families and guardians. So para po maintindihan natin ano-ano ba yung mga dapat nating gawin sa bahay, no? Ano ba yung mga G Suite tools na yan? So, meron pong ginawa si Google para sa mga magulang at para sa mga guardians. Just visit google.gle/techtoolkit-families. So, These are, it contains video clips at saka po mga PDF files that we can read para po mas maunawaan natin si G Suite account po na ibibigay sa ating mga anak. Ngayon po, ito po yung isang gusto kong i-stress out. Take note that these technologies are just tools. We have to remember that technologies should help us make our lives easier. So let us not be consumed by technology. Kasi pag masyado tayo nakatutok sa ating mga gadget, minsan nakaka-stress na rin, ano? Yung mga notification, nakaka-stress yung maraming notification natin. So, medyo mag-unplug din po tayo, no? So, teachers will be using these tools to facilitate learning, but their activities does not need to be online all the time. Kasi po dapat, lalo na sa mga bata, no, kailangan po yan yung mga unplug activities pa. So, let us remember that learning can take place anytime, anywhere without technology. But again, the use of the technology now is to facilitate learning. So also, there are what we call teachable moments. A teachable moment is when an unplanned opportunity that arises at home, ano, where a parent has a chance to offer insight to his or her child. Kasi po, yung mga teachable moments na yan, mas nag-stick sa ating mga anak. Okay po, so hopefully, these are some tips that you can apply at home. The learning spaces, yung mga life skills na pwede nating ituro. Ano po? So if you have a question, go ahead. You can ask them na po.
All right. Thank you so much, Sir Gary, for that wonderful presentation. I just have to say, I learned so much from all the practical tips that you gave. And I really feel like it's so important to learn these things. Kasi katulad nga po nung sinabi nyo, our living and our learning environments have now been merged together. Kaya kailangan talaga natin ng mga bagong life skills that will help our parents, our guardians to adjust to it as well. Kasi syempre technology could be overwhelming for some,
Oh,
right, Sir
yeah.
Gary? I'm sure a lot of our listeners, of everyone who's watching right now, have learned so much. And there are some questions. So why don't we start from this question with Simple Oy? Sabi niya, do you think parents have to be techie just for them to use or appreciate G Suite? What do you think, Sir Gary?
Oo. Yung pagiging techie kasi, ano na yan, parang ngayon, hindi na siya option, ano? So, at least know technology, how to use it properly para po magabayan natin yung ating anak. Kaya nga po yung G Suite for Education account na gagamitin ng ating mga anak, medyo safe yan. Kaya hindi po dapat natin binibigyan, ako po as parents, I'm a parent, I have an 11 and 14-year-old. I don't allow them to create their own account. Kasi, when we allow them to have their own account, merong advertisement yan, ano? Kasi by default, 18 years old lang naman ang pwedeng mag-create ng account. Pero syempre, dinadaya natin yan ngayon, no? Maraming gumagawa yan. So, may mga ads na baka hindi appropriate para sa kanila. So, that is why we have to be techie. Yes, we have to be techie, but not too techie. As long as it facilitates learning, as long as it addresses our needs, yes, go ahead. Learn technology. But
Yeah, I
remember,
think
these are
also
just tools.
parang basic lang, no, Sir Gary? Parang
Basic lang.
as long as you
Basic.
have an understanding of all the things that are necessary for it, I feel like it's really so important. So you're right, kailangan nating alamin, pero hindi naman kailangan na sobrang expert,
So,
guys. Okay lang
yes.
naman. And you can take it day by day, di ba? Parang kung today,
Yeah.
magla-learn ka ng something new, and then the next day, a new feature ulit. Thank you for that question. If you guys have more questions, o kaya naman, kung meron po kayo mga learnings that you would like to share in the comment section, please do so. Ako naman, Sir Gary, meron akong question for
Sure,
you.
sure.
As you mentioned earlier, everything is being blurred right now. Parang yung lines natin between home and school and work, all those things are being blurred right now. Meron ba po
Mhm.
kayong mga tips for our parents who are currently juggling all those things together? Paano ba tayo mag adjust into this new normal?
Okay. Kaya yung very important yung values natin. Kasi it's hard to adjust if our values is not in place. For example, what do we prioritize? We have to think now as parents, what do we prioritize? So our work ba? Our family, of course our family we prioritize them, no? But we have to take good care of ourselves. We have to make sure that our values are in place. Kasi kung ano yung nakikita sa atin ng ating mga anak, nakikita ng mga anak natin sa atin, ito yung matututunan niyan. So, in a way, kahit hindi natin pinapangaralan yung anak natin, nakikita sa atin yan. So, we have to adjust by being a good example. Kaya sabi ko rin kanina, we are the first teachers of our children. So, mahirap, pero number one, we have to take good care of ourselves. Because, let's say, if you're stressed out, nagkakaroon tayo, nag-i-emit tayo ng hindi magandang energy. So, we have to take some time to take a break, relax, pause kung na-stress na tayo bilang magulang. Kasi ang dami kailangang i-balance na magulang. Eh. So, take care of yourself also. That's one, I think, the most important. Kasi if we try to assist as much as possible our kids, pero ang dami nating concern at the back of our mind, subconsciously, we're not giving what we're supposed to give. Alam natin, gusto natin good intention yung gusto natin gawin, pero iba yung naiimit ng ating movements, ano? Iba yung hawak natin sa kamay, ano? Mahigpit pala masyado. So we have to take good care of our being muna, ano? Yung disposition ng bawat isa bilang magulang. Yeah.
That's right. You know, Sir Gary, also like what you said kanina, setting schedules will help you really,
Yeah.
di ba? Kasi hindi mo naman kayang ingatan or alagaan yung sarili mo kung walang fixed schedule for you to take those breaks. So I think
Oh.
that's really so important to create that structure within the household so that whatever lines were blurred at that time, kaya na natin na ibalik ulit yung structure na yon. Ito naman
Mm.
po another question from Suzette Espiritu. Sabi niya, do we as parents need to be beside our kids in the duration of online time schedule? What do you think, Sir Gary?
Iyon po ay depende sa age. Kasi po may mga, katulad po sabi ko kanina, yung mga toddlers natin, yung mga nursery, kinder, hindi pa yan marunong mag-manipulate ng computer, ano? So, dapat po merong adult lang just for them to assist the kids to learn, to unmute or mute the microphone. Kasi parang may participation sila sa klase. But for the older one, mga siguro grades 5 or grades 4 and up, pwede na po yan maging pwede na po yan, hindi na kailangan bantayan, no? Pero as parents, kailangan din natin titignan. Kaya yung learning environment natin, hindi siya pwedeng sa kwarto ng anak natin. Dapat yan sa sala kasi tignan natin kung nakikinig naman yung ating anak. Kasi pwedeng mangyari, mahina internet connection, naka-off yung camera, naka-mute yung microphone, at yung anak natin natutulog na pala. Hindi naman pwedeng ganon. So, as parents, it's our role to, anak, mag-focus ka dyan. O kaya, halimbawa, nakatingin sa camera. Yung pala, may binubot-bot yung kamay niya sa hindi lang kita sa camera. So, role ng parents o ng adult na, listen, you pay attention, yung mga ganon. Kasi ito yung hindi magagawa ng mga teachers ngayon. So, makikita ngayon siguro ng mga magulang kung gaano kahirap din magturo. Yeah.
Totoo, totoo nga po. And katulad ng sinabi mo kanina, Sir Gary, para naman tayo naging guidance counselor na rin ng mga
Oo.
parents, 'di ba, lahat ng roles na 'yon. I'm sure it's really so it's a challenge to adjust to these new roles, Sir Gary. So ang question naman ni Noel Francisco, sabi niya, how important is online G Suite communities for parents who want to know more or be equipped about distance learning? Because as we mentioned earlier, it can be
Mm.
a challenge. So I think what will really help is having communities that you could,
Yeah.
adjust with and learn with. How important is it, Sir Gary?
Kasi po, ang gusto kong, ang galing ng question kasi maraming communities for different purpose, Pero meron dyan mga group of parents din. But using, being part of a community that uses G Suite, we can learn from them. Kasi ngayon lang po lahat tayo pumunta sa ganitong sitwasyon. So, we can learn from them. There are teachers who are also parents, and they can see the advantage and disadvantages. So, you can communicate with them. Alam natin ang best para sa mga anak. Bilang magulang, alam natin yung the best para sa kanila. Pero sa pag-aaral, mas magandang malaman yan sa isang magulang at the same time teacher. Kasi nakikita ng isang teacher at magulang din yung mga advantage ng being part of a community. Kasi may mga tips yan based from experience na bale yung makukuha natin. Hindi na yan theoretical, kundi applied, according to research kasi based from their experience. So being part of an online community for parents will be a very good thing for all the parents to do, to be part of, siguro mag-start tayo kasi wala pa ako nakita dito sa Pilipinas. Ano? Meron mga parenting, all about parenting, but with the education plus teaching at home or the learning from home, wala pa ako nakitang community na ganyan. So, Sir Noel, thank you for your question, but it's good to be part of a community because, based from experience, doon naman tayo natututo lagi. No? When it is tested. Yeah, so doon tayo magkakaroon ng exchange. Yeah.
Kumbaga, reality check na, no, Sir
Yeah.
Gary? Kung paano mo talaga i-a-apply yung mga theories and
Oo.
ideologies that we've learned. And I feel like you're right. It's really important to have those communities, to foster those communities kung wala pa ngayon. Sir Gary, I learned so much from you today. Maraming maraming salamat po.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us here this afternoon once again, Sir Gary Garcia, giving us tips and practical tricks talaga to be able to adjust to this new normal that all of our parents, our teachers, and our students have now been facing. So hopefully, na-enjoy niyo po yun at marami din po kayo natutunan. Katulad ko, nakikita ko inyong mga comments telling us about what you've learned and some of your questions. We'll try to squeeze those in sa mga next presenters po natin. Now, katulad ng sinabi ni Sir Gary, alam niyo po, distance learning really requires a big adjustment. It is important to have the right tools and, of course, yung right support to help ease the transition. And right now, we'll hear more of that for our next presenter. Google for Education Senior Program Manager, we have Eileen Apollo de Jesus. Miss Eileen.
Hi, Joyce! Magandang hapon sa iyo.
Magandang hapon. Excited for your presentation, Miss Eileen. Go ahead.
Salamat, Joyce. See you later. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Eileen Apollo de Jesus, and grabe, as in today, I was just looking at everybody's comments. Gusto ko sana batiin lahat ng mga uma-attend from across the Philippines, and I tried to list out actually all the different provinces represented today, and humaba yung listahan ko. So, magandang hapon na lang sa inyong lahat from Luzon, joining from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. I hope you are staying safe at home and also, keep safe, especially during this period. So let's start. Next, please. So this afternoon, I'll be talking about how you as a parent or a guardian of a student, how you can actually support them. So I'll start it off first with, the learning environment that our students are using today. And then I'll show you where you can get additional support. May nagtanong nga kanina kay Gary, di ba? Are there any communities specifically for parents on G Suite? Sa ngayon, sabi nga ni Gary, I haven't heard of any specific parent community, but you could certainly start one if you're a parent who'd like to help other parents how to learn how to adjust to this new normal of learning. Just keep doing those really awesome initiatives. So, next slide please. Simulan na natin kung ano ba tong mga ginagamit natin sa bahay ngayon for teaching and learning for our children. So, the first part is you need to create a learning environment. And earlier, si Sir Gary provided us with some tips that you can do in order to set the mood for your children to start learning. Next slide, please. So at Google, we've actually been providing tools and services for schools to use. It's either they use it within the school or sa ngayon for distance learning. So within Google, we call this Google for Education. And under Google for Education, there's a couple of things that we actually provide for teaching and learning. Unang-una dyan, and at the core of that is what we call G Suite for Education. So, some of you probably have heard about this from schools, lalo na kung nag-aaral po yung anak nyo sa private school, or if, for example, your child is under a public school, under Department of Education, coming na po yung mga accounts para sa mga ating estudyante under Department of Education or sa DepEd. It will come soon sometime in September. So for G Suite for Education, ano nga ba ito? So G Suite for Education is actually, it's a suite of free Google tools and services that are tailored for schools and homeschools. It's a collection of apps that includes tools for productivity, collaboration, communication, which allows schools to easily manage it. So, binibigay po namin to for free for schools to use. All they need to do is to apply for their OG Suite for Education account and provide accounts for all the teachers and the students within their school. Okay. Another thing that we're also providing, and na-mention nga ni Sir Gary kanina, is one thing that we could probably provide for our children is syempre a device. At Google, we have our own set of devices. We call it the Chromebook. So, Chromebook is a very easy to use device. It's very lightweight and easy, and ilang segundo pa lang online ka na because it is based on the Chrome OS. And madali po siyang gamitin especially for children. So ako bilang parent, when my son was young and syempre matigas ang ulo, he started to like play all these different games. I actually got him a Chromebook to use at home for studying. So that helped him, focus just specifically to use the device for studying. And of course, the third and the core to our tools and services that we provide for schools is Google Classroom. So some of you may have encountered this. Ano ba talaga tong Google Classroom? Diba? Pag-usapan pa natin yan. So next slide, please. All right, so let's dig a little deeper. What exactly is G Suite for Education? And mamaya, si Teacher Paula will be like going over a few of this also and specifically show you how you as a parent can support. So I mentioned earlier, G Suite for Education provides different sets of tools. So kung as a parent, meron po kayong Gmail account, pwede nyo pong, like paglaruan and like to just understand how these applications actually work. So for collaboration, meron po tayo dyan yung Google Drive, which includes Google Docs, Spreadsheet, Google Slides also, and of course, Jamboard. And then for communications, ito siguro madalas yung ginagamit. We have Gmail and also Google Meets, diba? So this is what you can use for video conferencing, for chatting also. That's why you use for communicating. And then, of course, for collaboration, there is Google Classroom and also Google Forms. So a lot of teachers actually use this. And if there's one thing teachers really absolutely love about G Suite for Education, ito po yung Google Classroom, diba? And of course, importante siguro sa inyo as parents to understand, parang how do I know what my kids are doing? You can manage their tasks using Google Keep and Google Calendar as well. So that's just a very brief overview about G Suite for Education. Eh mamaya pakita pa natin ano ba yung uses nito for learning. Next slide, please. All right. But something very important, I would think that you can like support your children with is, the access to technology. And siguro iniisip nyo, but, G Suite for Education always requires us to be always online. Hindi po, because what we have done is we've actually made available some of the apps which you can use offline. And this is something that you will need to teach your child how to use, is how can you set, let's say, a Google Doc to offline so that your child can continue writing or editing their work offline. And then when they go back online or are able to connect back to the internet, it will automatically sync back and they'll be able to send their work to their teacher. So, access to technology, yon. Isa sa mga kailangan yung matutunan is how do you set these things offline. Or if it's not a Google Docs or a Google Sheet or a Google Slide, what if, like nakamiss yung anak nyo ng live lesson which has been done via Google Meets. So at this time, actually, teachers who are using G Suite accounts can actually record their classes online. Para let's say na-miss nung anak nyo yung class, then if the teacher sets it and makes it available on their Google Classroom, you can just simply download it kung hindi naman unlimited yung internet nyo sa bahay, and then have your child watch the lesson offline. So that's something that you can do. Next slide, please. Alright, so kanina pa ako Google Classroom ng Google Classroom, di ba? So what exactly is Google Classroom? Google Classroom is a system for where teachers can manage their classes easily. So para hindi na like everything's all over the place. So we developed Google Classroom actually based on feedback from teachers, based on working together with schools for thousands of hours to understand exactly what do they need, to help them manage their classes efficiently. So kaya ginawa namin yung Google Classroom. So let's talk a bit more about it. Next slide, please. So a Google Classroom is, where a teacher can create a classroom whereby they can add all the students that they have for a class, and then students can sign into that class using any computer or any mobile device to access their assignments, their course material, and also feedback from their teacher. So usually, sa Google Classroom, dito nagsiset yung teacher ng work for their students, like homework, or dito rin pwede mag-engage yung teachers for their students if they want to pick their thoughts, or like teachers can assign, let's say, a Google form that they want their students to fill out. So for teachers na gumagamit ng Google Classroom, this is like one central place that your student or your child can go to para makita nila ano ba yung mga homework na kailangan nilang gawin, di ba? Next slide, please. So, how do students actually use Google Classroom? So, yung teacher, sila yung nagsiset ng work na kailangan gawin ng mga estudyante. But on the other side, of course, for the students, this is where they access their assignments or their homework. They can ask questions to their teacher or to their kapwa estudyante, and also find the different resources that their teachers are providing for them and get feedback. So for those who have young children, and if your school where your child is going is using Google Classroom, this is, like you as a parent, you probably need to support your young child to go through Google Classroom. Okay, next slide, please. And syempre, siguro kanina may nakita ako nag-ask ng question, like, how can we make sure that the teachers are knowledgeable about how to use these tools, diba? So actually, us at Google, we've been providing resources for teachers and educators to learn how to use our different tools. And mamaya pakita ko rin sa inyo where they can get information so that If you feel your teacher needs a little help with learning how to use these tools, you can help point them out to these resources. So, siguro one place that you can remember will be the Google Teacher Center. So, search nyo lang yan. Nandyan po lahat ng aming materials to learn how to use all these tools. But you, as a parent, how do you support your child if they're using Google Classroom, diba? So, one thing, syempre, for a lot of parents, and I have a lot of friends who reach out to me, actually, like, especially those with younger children, na gusto nila matuto, pero how do I do this? One, you need to know where you can log in to Google Classroom so that you can see what the tasks are for your children. And then of course, one thing that you need to let your child know is they should be asking questions from their teacher if there's something that they are not sure about. Kasi mas may ginang magtanong sila, 'di ba? Kaysa yung they'll just let it go without knowing exactly what they need to do. So basically, you also need to remember that your child will be working digitally through Google Classroom, and you don't necessarily need to print or email the work to the teacher. Kasi if the teacher sets the homework through Google Classroom, then it's already set. Then your child will have their own Google Doc or spreadsheet or slide that they'll work on, and this is shared already with the teacher. So you don't need to share it back via email, or you don't need to print it out and send to the teacher. All right, next slide, please. Okay, one thing probably that you can encourage your schools to create are guardian summaries. So when a school uses Google Classroom, one of the things that they can opt to do is actually create guardian summaries. But this is something that the school will need to enable so that you, as the parent or the guardian, can receive an email on the summary of what your child's progress is. So, sa ngayon, because teachers are still learning how to use all these tools, this is a next step that the schools will likely need to take so that they can send, guardian summary. So you can just take it one step at a time together with the school, and para, in time, you'll have better communications between you and the school as well. Next slide, please. And if you want to learn a bit more about this guardian summaries, or you'd like to provide this information to your child's school, you can send them this link, bit.ly/guardian instructions. There's a lot of information in that you can learn from. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's go to additional support. Siguro you're all panicking na parang, paano kung meron something na hindi gumana while I'm working with my child? Where can I get immediate support? So the first thought there is, syempre, you should encourage your school to actually have, a sites page which can, help parents understand where they can actually get support. So I've seen a number of schools who have been doing this, who publish a list of where you can actually get support for your child as you use all these tools. But let's say wala nun, where can you actually get help, diba? So next slide, please. So if, for example, you get stuck with something or may issue kayong na-encounter, here are places at Google that you can first look at. You can just go to support.google.com and search for the issue that you're encountering. There is most likely a guide there that you can read through to help, resolve the issue. And isang tip na mabibigay ko sa inyo is clear the cache. Usually, minsan napupuno po yung memory ng mga device natin or computer. And sometimes it's just an issue of clearing the cache. And this is an important, like, like ability to know because it usually resolves everything else. So support.google.com or try clearing your cache. Okay? Secondly, there's also youtube.com. So, ako po kasi, like, I'm lucky my husband is pretty technical. I am not. But sometimes when he's away or like I can't nag him because he's at work, I usually go to youtube.com to get me out of a bind. May it be something technical related or other things related, like let's say you're taking care of plants. So there's a lot of things that you can check via youtube.com also to help resolve your issue. And of course, another thing you can remember is just search on Google. Madali lang po gawin yan, di ba? Next slide, please. Okay, so for our lesson today, parang if there's one thing that you can and should remember from this session I'm providing today, and if you want to see more information about like all this, like tools and services we're providing for schools, you can just go to teachfromanywhere.com Google. So there's a lot of information there that we have provided so you can understand a bit more about all these tools and services we're providing. And we are also providing additional information there on how you can stay safe online and how to keep your child safe online. Kasi this is very important for you to know as a parent. And like me, when my son was growing up, this is, of course, a key concern that I had. So I read as much materials that I could to keep my son safe online. All right. Next, please. And of course, something that's new that we are providing is a tech toolkit for parents, guardians, and families. So if you go to the link teachfromanywhere.google, this is actually where you can find, a toolkit. We have training videos that we have from made by our Google Educator Groups, which is our community of educators across the globe. They have actually created training videos for guardians. And may secret po ako, isa po dyan si Sir Gary. Kasama po siya dyan sa mga nag-provide ng training video for guardians. And of course, part of this tech toolkit is a Google Terms Glossary. Kasi syempre, di ba, parang sa dami siguro ng maririnig nyong terms that we are like sharing today, nakakalito siya. And I was the same way, way back when I started working for Google. Pero madali naman po siyang aralin. And of course, we also have something like a best practices for parents, families, and guardians that you can read through so that you can understand better how can you create like a good learning environment for your children. Okay, next please. And of course, andyan din po ang YouTube. So if you go to learnathome.withyoutube.com, this is also a good resource for you as parents with children of different ages and areas of interest, di ba? Marami po dyan playlists, mga live streams, mga field trips. So if you feel like you need to provide more activities for your child at home, you could just go to this link as well so you can do a lot more for them. Next slide, please. All right. And of course, I come to the last part of my session today. And this is about ready-made learning opportunities from Google. So, as I mentioned earlier, syempre yung mga bata, di ba, parang we need to keep them busy. We need to keep them productive. So at Google, we've actually created a couple of materials that you as a parent or you as families can use, for teaching and learning at home. Next slide, please. CS first. So this is computer science first. Next slide, please. So computer science first or CS first is like an introductory computer science curriculum. This is for students aged 9 to 14. And this is something that you can use to introduce your children to computer science. So I was actually very lucky because when I was a child, my older brother actually like got my feet wet on computer science. Hindi man ako tumuloy, to take computer science later on. But I feel this helped me, helped me with my formation as I was growing up. And basically, you don't need to enroll your child in any class. You can just go search uh, Google CS first to find the materials that you can use to like introduce your child to computer science. And I tell you, this is easy. You don't need any computer science background to go through the materials. You can just, sit through it with your child and then, introduce them to computer science. Next, please. Ayan po yung link, g.co/cs first. So, go check it out. And if you're also, an educator joining this session today, you can certainly use this also for your students. Next, please. Okay, there's many different resources. There's a help center also for CS First. You can just simply share that. And you can also check out the Parents and Guardians Guide for CS First. So pag sinerch nyo po yan sa Google, mahahanap naman po ninyo yan. Next slide, please. Okay, one of my favorite things at Google is Be Internet Awesome. And how I wish I had this when my son is growing up. Matanda na po kasi siya ngayon. But Be Internet Awesome is one of the most amazing modules that we have at Google. And I think every child, every parent, every guardian should go through this to ensure that you and your children remain safe when they go online. Next slide, please. So, Be Internet Awesome is actually an online safety and digital citizenship program. So, si Sir Gary po kanina, nagpakita siya ng like some tips and tricks like making a strong password. This is one of those things that you can actually learn from Be Internet Awesome, like how to make sure your passwords are safe. May mga tips din doon on how to become a good digital citizen. And the best thing about that, like this module is actually very interactive. Bakit? Papakita ko. Next slide, please. So yung Be Internet Awesome, what it actually includes are different materials that you can use to, understand how you can keep your child safe online and how you can guide your child to be safe online and to become good digital citizens. So there's a family guide. We have helpful tips available. We have the family pledge that you can actually sign as a family to, make a promise to each other that you'll keep safe whenever you go online. And then, of course, there's a cute coloring book that you can use and print, for your children also. So this is all free and available at g.co/Be Internet Awesome Families. Next slide, please. And ito po yung exciting. Kasi kahit ako, even though I'm an adult already, this is one thing that I have enjoyed doing. So there's the Be Internet Awesome Interland game demo. Masaya po siyang gawin. So it's a game when you play it, you learn different values on how to keep safe online and how to be good digital citizens. So, try nyo po siya. I-search nyo lang mamaya, pagtapos na po yung mga session natin, the Be Internet Awesome Interland game. Para po siyang map game that, and you hop from one island to the other to learn different values about keeping safe and being a good digital citizen. Masaya po yung game na yan. Try ninyo. Next, please. Okay, we're done for the day. Hooray! And I'm happy to answer any questions. Tingin natin si Joyce bumalik.
Hello, Miss Eileen, I am back. O, diba? Ang dami kong natutunan, ang daming tools. Dapat pala sinabi ko sa audience natin today, Miss Eileen, na magdala sila ng pen and paper para naisulat nila lahat ng mga sinabi mo. Because it's really so exciting to know that there are so many tools that our parents can use now for adapting to this new environment that we have. So, katulad po ng sinabi ni Miss Eileen, if you have any questions, please do send them in the comment section already. Ayan, this one from Rose Liza. Sabi niya, using this G Suite, madali lang po ba na i-manage ng isang bata ages 10 to 12 years old kahit walang assistance ng parents, especially for working moms and dads?
Yes. Siguro, one thing that we can keep in mind right now is kids learn so fast nowadays, di ba? Like, ang bilis nilang matuto. May nagsabi nga sa akin is, parang pinanganak na silang may device na hawak sa kamay nila. But, but of course, as a parent, mas maigi po, like in the beginning, for you to guide, your children as they start logging in para alam po nila saan ba silang Google Classroom pupunta, kung Google Classroom man yung binigay na link ng teachers nila. Like siguro in the first couple of weeks, be there for your child, diba? So I'm sure naman your company will understand that you're also like supporting your child as they learn from home. So, wag naman po natin sila iwanan ng basta-basta gano'n. So, simula po, bigyan po natin ng konting guidance yung mga anak natin. And I'm pretty sure they'll learn really fast on how to use these different tools that they need for learning.
As we said, Miss Eileen, no, digital natives ang mga bata ngayon. Kaya naman madali nilang matututunan. But as you mentioned, as with anything, we have to guide them and help them adjust to everything that they're learning. This time naman, a question from Arubite. Sabi niya, what are the minimum system requirements for Google Suite or G Suite?
Yes, what you just need is a device with a browser.
That's it?
That's it. Yeah. You can use any type of phone or like laptop or computer as long as it has a browser, it will work. And more importantly, syempre maganda po kung ang gamit niyo po ay Google Chrome. Pero kahit anong browser, gagana naman siya.
Yes, syempre. Mas mabilis nga lang pag Google Chrome, di ba?
Yes.
So if you have that option, that will be the best option. Thank you for that question, Arubay. This time around, a question from JJ Quirino. Sabi niya, Miss Eileen, how can we engage parents in distance learning?
Yes, so this is very important, diba? So like one of the things that I mentioned earlier is maganda kung yung school is able to provide guardian summaries for the parents so that if there is anything that like the teachers would like to also include in engaging the parents, makikita ng parents or like the parents can also check kung ano ba yung mga homework na binibigay ng mga teachers for their students. Sabi nga kahapon ni Laika, who helped moderate the session for educators yesterday, one of the things that she suggested was like give more homework to your students to create things. And when you create things, that's where you could actually involve the parents as well. Diba? So like, let's say, binigyan mo ng homework yung anak, yung students to do like, let's say, take photos of specific items at home, pwede nilang i-engage yung parents para it becomes a fun family activity, di ba?
Yeah, so think of creative ways talaga, no, Miss Eileen,
Mhm.
to involve the whole family. And I feel like also maximizing the tools that we already have that you were talking about earlier would really help in engaging the parents. We have another question here from Acer Cervantes. Sabi niya naman po, is G Suite available for free at Google Play Store?
G Suite po is, it's a suite of tools. So it is not an app that you can find on the Google Play Store. So if you're a school and you're the IT admin of the school with access to your school domain, you will need to follow a process to register for G Suite for education. So hindi po siya app. It's a suite of tools that is kumbaga parang linked to the school domain. So, kahapon po, dinescribe ko yung full process. You can also check out the educator session that I gave yesterday where I like detailed on how to register for your school G Suite for Education account.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, last question I think. This one coming from Arubite. Sabi niya, is there a minimum age who can use G Suite? How do we make sure that they are not overexposed to electronics at a very young age that might impact their physical and mental development?
Yeah, so basically, the minimum age for G Suite for Education accounts is actually 13 years old. And then if a school, decides to also use this for younger children, they are required to actually get the consent of parents. And as schools, like enforce policies on how they use their G Suite for Education account, they will be able to select what only specific applications the children can actually use. So, meron po yung specifications depende sa age ng mga estudyante na nagagamit. And of course, how do you ensure that they are not overexposed to electronics? You can probably check that with the school and what kinds of learning modalities that they are using. And you as a parent, of course, if you feel that it's too much, you should certainly provide feedback to the school so that the school can adjust if there's anything that they should be adjusting for younger kids.
Awesome. Thank you, Miss Eileen. I just want to share also, my mom-in-law is actually a teacher. And so they started already their online classes. And of course, one of the things that they're doing now in their school is they actually implement screen breaks within their classrooms. So talagang kasama sa schedule yung screen break na yon. So I guess, for parents and teachers out there, you could integrate that as well to schedule a screen break in between the classes para naman alam ng mga bata din kung kailan, 'di ba? Kailangan nila mag-break from technology.
Oo, tama. Mahirap naman talaga even us as adults, 'di ba? Like, every meeting, I actually stand up and go to my balcony to look at my tomatoes for screen break.
Yes, mag-check muna ng mga plants natin, 'di ba? Tayo muna ng konti. Pero tama eh, katulad ng sinabi ni Sir Gary kanina, you have to think about these schedules kasi all these structures that we used to have are no longer there. So we have to create those structures within our daily lives. And the presentation that you just gave us, Miss Eileen, was really helpful in learning about the tools and the tips that we could use for this new adjustment that we're all making in this environment. So maraming salamat po ulit.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Miss Eileen, again for that presentation. Nako, marami pa tayong mga questions from our parents and our audience now in the comment section. At maraming salamat po muli sa mga nanonood ngayon. And syempre sa mga nagsisend ng mga questions this afternoon. We hope that you are learning a lot from Google for Education for Philippines and hopefully excited na kayo for the next part of our webinar. Dahil ngayon naman, I think you wouldn't want to miss the next presentation because our speaker is a teacher to share her actual experience where we can all learn from. So, She's a faculty member and the EdTech and IT support specialist from Cornerstone Christian Academy of Quezon City. She is also a Google certified educator, levels 1 and 2, and a Google educator group leader in Ortigas. Please welcome Paula Cortez. Paula.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Joyce.
Hi.
All right. So, let, let me begin with my presentation. Good afternoon po ulit sa inyong lahat. And ako po si Paula Cortez. And I am the EdTech and IT support specialist of Cornerstone Christian Academy of Quezon City. And I also teach, no? Actually, I teach across levels from grades 4 hanggang grade 12. So, medyo malawak yung mga maikikwento ko sa inyo for today. So, just to start off for this session, I just want to give you a preview no kung ano yung mga mami-mention natin for this afternoon. So, I'll tell you more about how the school prepared and how we partnered with the parents no as we get ready for the new normal of school year 2020-2021. And then I'll also tell more about the IT setup no yung mga makukuhang support ng parents, and at the same time yung pinaka-importante kasi talaga is yung communication natin. Ano ba yung communication in the face of new normal between parents and students? Between parents and schools. Kasi they are partners eh. We are partners with parents. And at the same time, how you can monitor your children using G Suite for Education. So let me start off by saying our school, when we were training our faculty members, we started with this theme. We want to make sure that students learn how to strive, to thrive, and not just to survive. Kasi ang dami kong nakikita ngayon online na sinasabi nila na 2020 is all about survival. But to be honest, we wanted to be a little bit more positive. At the same time, yung maiplant natin sa mga bata would echo towards the yung future nila. So we want them to learn how to thrive even at the environment such as yung nangyayari ngayon. So this is not only shared to between or among the faculty members of our school, but it's also actually shared during the dry run. No, kami ay nagkaroon ng dry run sa aming mga magulang, no, sa mga parents na nag-enroll sa aming school. And at the same time, we urge them na dapat ito din yung kanilang panghawakan. We want to teach their children, and they need to also want to teach their children to strive to thrive in this environment and in this time that we are being challenged by this pandemic. So, paano ba nag-prepare ang school namin? So, unang-una, ang daming trainings. So many trainings. And this, during the time that we were doing this, ang isang mindset lang namin is kailangan kung ano yung ginagawa namin, maibaba namin ito sa mga magulang, maintindihan nila, and at the same time, maibaba rin nila ito sa mga estudyante. I want to think of the partnership between parents and the school as a triangle. So, yung tip ng triangle would be the student, and then we are the teachers and the parents, and then helping the child, helping the child to really absorb or survive and thrive in this new normal. So we did a lot of virtual trainings. We did curriculum trainings kasi magkaiba po ang pagpe-prepare ng offline, no, face-to-face classes versus yung online na hindi mo talaga nakakasama ang mga bata. And at the same time, since we are a Christian school, we also did some trainings on Bible integration, and most especially technology integration. And with that, yung isang fruit ng labor namin is actually the Google certification exams. All of our faculty members really took on the challenge to make sure that they pass the Google certified educator level 1. And there are a couple of teachers in our midst also who are Google certified level 2 educators. So this actually gave us more confidence to make sure that pag humarap kami sa mga bata at pag humarap kami sa mga magulang, kaya namin silang suportahan. And yun nga, while we're all doing these things, no, nagkaroon kami ng maraming parent forums. Sobrang dami. Hindi namin inakala na marami palang hindi nakakaintindi ng OS, PE, or online learning program. Ano ba yung blended learning? Ano ba yung modular distance learning? So we had to make sure that parents are very well informed, because aside from they're the ones who's gonna make the decision kung i-enroll ba nila yung mga anak nila. At the same time, sila din yung makakatulong sa school in order for the child to be ready, no, to face this challenge. And then, to support both parents and students, we did a 1 week orientation and dry run. We asked the parents to attend what we call the PTA, or ang parent teacher assembly, and we did it online this year. Marami silang questions, and it's very interesting because most of the questions that they asked are actually also the questions that we asked ourselves before. And we're so happy kasi at least alam namin na yung mga questions nila is answerable by, by all the things that we have gone through. And the dry run is very important because that is when the parent know how the online learning environment would look like. Ano yung magiging itsura nito kapag yung bata na ang gumagawa? How does it feel to be, being in front of the computer or being in front of the device using emails, using Google Docs, Google Sheets, and Google Slides? And another thing is, one thing that we cleared out also to our parents is that all our subjects are tech integrated na. Hindi, it doesn't mean that, let's say for example, sa computer subject lang ba tinuturo ang computer know-hows? Of course not. Here, no, ang ginawa namin, yung program na binild namin is that we make sure that the parents can see that the technology that we're using is integrated in all our subjects. And ICT subjects such as TLE ICT and computer subjects are now more focused on proper digital behavior. And we make sure that children interacts with their parents. We also tell our parents na kailangan marunong kayong turuan yung mga anak ninyo to behave properly. There's no such thing as a different life online and a different life offline. It's actually very much the same. So I try as much as I can not to be technical with this. Pero yung preparations naman for the technical is that we used Google Classroom as our main online platform. Why Google Classroom? So later in the next few slides, I will be showing you this. The parents and students also has their own account. So yung parents po from K to 12, okay, lahat po sila, meron silang tinatawag namin na family account. Bakit kailangan nun? Because we want to make sure that the activities are limited within the domain. As much as we can, we align with the Data Privacy Act. Kasi, syempre, nakakatakot din yung merong mga information na baka ma-divulge or baka ma-leak. So, we make sure that all the activities, even the monitoring of the parents, is within the domain. Yun yung kagandahan ni G Suite. Kasi pwede kang mamigay ng accounts not only to the students, not only to the faculty members, but even to the families in order for them to monitor their child. All right. And then the next one is that the accounts issued, no, yung accounts ng mga estudyante, just like what Miss Eileen and Sir Gary mentioned a while ago, children are required to be 13 years old and above in order for them to have an account. Now, paano po yung mga nasa K to 6, di ba? Kasi usually, mga 13-year-old, mga nasa grade 7 na yan. Well, that's where the family account comes to play. The family accounts that we gave to parents are the same accounts that they use, or the students in K to 6 use for their learning. So mas madali din yung monitoring dun sa parent. And then at the same time, we also build e-learning resources. Now, children do not have the opportunity to go to libraries at this time. Hindi nga sila pwedeng lumabas, hindi ba? So, yung Google Drive, no? Since Google Drive is unlimited for G Suite for Education, we made sure to provide an e-library. This is also accessible to parents. So if they want to do storytelling with their children, or if they want to access, let's say, to help their children look for resources online, these are already recommended by our faculty members, and even an audio visual repository. These are movies, or also yung mga video clips na ginagamit namin, and even teacher-made video clips are made available in our EAVR. So, let's talk about communication. Communication is one of the most important aspects in the education in the new normal. So, like what I said, parents and school are partners. And in order for us to communicate, since the parent has family accounts, and even kahit wala, let's say for example, you're just starting, or you're the school where your child is enrolling, wala pa silang G Suite for Education. You can just actually use Gmail, not to interact with the school. You can email the faculty member, or in our case, the advisor, anytime that they need to. If they have questions, they can email. Yung iba naming mga parents sinasabi na may iba bang option aside from email? Actually, meron po. You can also monitor your child's activities, or you can also communicate to our teachers via private comments in Google Classroom. Now, bear in mind that it really depends on the school policy. Pero we encourage our parents to really look at their children's Google Classroom. Para din makita ng mga magulang, ano ba yung ginagawa ng anak ko? Paano ko ba pwedeng suportahan ng anak ko? Ano ba yung mga madalas niyang tanong sa teacher niya? So these are some things, kasi madalas dun lumalabas sa mga private comments yung ng Google Classroom, yung mga tanong ng mga bata na hindi nila ma-voice out during synchronous sessions or during the live sessions that we do. And then next, chat. So, sabi namin sa mga parents namin, dati kasi mahilig kami mag-text sa mga magulang. Pero ngayon, we also want to make sure that our faculty members would have, they know how to draw the line between work and life. So, we encourage our parents to download Google Hangouts in their phones, or also if they are at work, they can log in at any device as long as they remember their username and their password, and then chat with us. If they have questions nang kailangan immediate yung sagot, or meron silang concern, they may chat. So mas madali yung communication namin. We try to, as much as we can, to do away from other chat apps, mainly because this is already available for the G Suite for Education accounts. Now, I'm proud to say that we are indeed paperless this school year. So all of our forms, even our exams, and our reply slips are already digitized. So yung mga parents, kahit saan sila naroon, marami kaming OFW parents na kailangan ma-inform about a certain activity of the school or certain changes. And in order for that to happen, na-updated ang mga magulang, we issue what do you call this, Google Forms, no, na in a general reply slip. And at the same time, yung mga reply slips na yan, yung mga nakakatanggap nito would be solely our faculty members. Wala pong nade-divulge na information outside of the school. And at the same time, if communicating to parents, and parents monitoring their children would also be a little bit of a help, no? Dahil naka G Suite for Education na sila. Now, we haven't done really extensive parent-teacher meetings, but to be honest, yung isang recent na parent-teacher meetings namin would be those who are enrolled in the Children with Special Needs program of our school. So, syempre, one of the things na concern ng school namin, or ng mga schools right now, is that you cannot just go to the school whenever you want. And we want to make sure na protektado tayong lahat, na walang mahahawa sa atin or walang makakahawa sa atin. So in order for the parent-teacher meetings to happen, we use Google Meet. And Google Meet is a tool that we can, you can use video calling anytime, anywhere, as long as there's internet. And at the same time, yung isang nakatulong kasi dito is, nakikita din ng parent kung ano yung setup na ginagawa namin during online classes. Mas naiintindihan ngayon nung parent yung ginagawa ng estudyante during dun sa mga tinatawag naming synchronous sessions, or during the face-to-face sessions. So, yung perspective naman ng parents on monitoring their child's progress, what can you use? No? Ano yung mga pwede nyong gamitin? So, number one is that have an agreement with your child. Let your child, show you their Google Classroom. It's okay. Hindi naman natin ililimit yun. Kasi syempre, nasa bahay na rin lang kayo. You would want to know the activities of your children, especially online. And you can tell your children na, can I see your Google Classroom? This is very effective, especially for the young ones. And then at the same time, if let's say you don't want them to, especially yung mga nasa high school na, no? Minsan the parent will not be keen on asking the high school student. Kasi nga, ang tanda na nila. But what we gave our parents, I think na-mention na to kanina ni Miss Eileen, is the email summaries or the daily email summaries. This is directly delivered to the family accounts of our parents in Gmail. So, monitor ngayon nila. And we requested them to set the frequency to daily email summary so that each day, kasi 2 subjects lang po yung classes ng mga estudyante namin, 2 to 3 in a day. So makikita ngayon ng magulang gaano kadalas makamiss ng assignment yung bata. May particular favorite subject ba yung bata na lagi niyang ginagawa, tas yung isang subject hindi. Or makikita din nung parent kung tuwing kailan ba nagbibigay ng assignment or ng task. Actually, it's not assignment but task, no? Yung teacher. So these are already useful. And then another thing is that every time that a teacher sends a task to the child, the email will be notified. So we always say to the parents na you can just log in. Let's say you're not at home. You can monitor your child by logging into your Gmail account. And at the same time, pag nag-send na po si teacher ng email or ng ang tag dito ng task sa Google Classroom, magno-notify po iyon sa Gmail. So, very easy. Synchronous and task scheduling. We often say that kailangan ng mga bata ng schedule. Katulad nga nung sabi ni Sir Gary kanina. Lalo na yung mga young ones, no, yung mga nasa K-6, kailangan na kailangan nila matuto ng time management. And parents, when they log into their parent accounts or to their family accounts, or let's say they ask the student to give access to their own accounts, they will be able to see the schedule of the day, even the schedule for the week, using Google Calendar. Makikita nila doon ano ba yung mga subjects na may synchronous, ano ba yung mga subjects na merong task for the day, and even the task given in Google Classroom also reflects in Google Calendar. And of course, last but not the least, survey forms. We often give out surveys to the parents. Actually, nung nag-start kami, nung nag-lockdown last March, we gave out survey forms in order for us to improve. We want to know the condition of the home and at the same time, the condition of the child. So, very important ito yung mga feedback na nakukuha ng school, and at the same time, dito rin nagiging open ngayon yung magulang sa school in order for them to communicate to us ano ba yung mga needs ng mga anak nila. So very easy, we just provide the link, they answer it, they submit, and then at the same time, we consult them as needed. So I just want to say that if you have questions about our school, or if you want also to get to know us, you may visit our website, www.cornerstoneacademy.edu.ph, or you may email us. We can also give you advice and tips just in case po na meron po kayong mga katanungan about us. So this has been a really good opportunity. Thank you so much, Google. Thank you so much, Joyce.
Teacher Paula, thank you so much for that presentation. It's fascinating to see the many ways that the school, the educators, and our parents can actually collaborate, enable to give our students the best learning experience during this time. I learned so much. So thank you, Teacher Paula. I'm sure we have a lot of questions from our parents. So kung meron po kayong mga katanungan, pwede nyo na pong isend. Ayan, we have our first one from MJED. Sabi niya, how do I achieve the balance between giving giving the right amount of support and being a helicopter parent online. Kasi nga naman, sabi mo kanina, Teacher Paula, di ba, kailangan malaman din natin kung paano ba mag-distance ang mga parents ngayon na kailangan tutok din sila. So how do you strike that balance?
Okay. Usually kasi, right at this moment, helicopter parenting, nagsa-start yan kasi they're worried about the uncertainty. Ano bang mangyayari now that our children are going to school, no? Pero nasa bahay sila. So, we often tell our parents na okay lang naman if they like hover around for the first few months. Kasi nag-a-adjust din tayo, nag-a-adjust ang school, nag-a-adjust ang parents, nag-a-adjust ang estudyante. But at the same time, we encourage our parents to slowly back off. Parang I see this, Joyce, as parang walking or training a child when riding a bike, diba? So dapat may training wheels muna. So during the first few months, it's fine if you want to train your child, if you want to see the activities that he or she is doing online. But at the same time, as the months progress, learn how to trust your child. Because to be honest, marami akong na-experience na minsan mas techy pa yung bata kaysa dun sa magulang. And we just need to make sure that they are using the technology to properly. Paano sila mag-behave online. Siguro on a serious note, no, the more helicopter you are kasi, the more stifle the child will be. So yung ability nila would be a little bit na medyo ano tawag dito, parang namamask siya, hindi nagkakaroon ng confidence yung bata. When in fact, ang dami naming estudyante or maraming bata ngayon, yung meron na talaga silang confidence to do what they're doing. So my suggestion is, for the first few months, why not? Sit with your child, especially if your child is very young, no? We really encourage that, but slowly move away from it and then just watch from afar. um, I highly also suggest that you ask questions. You ask questions from the teachers because again, this is partnership between parents and the school.
Yeah, that's so important. And I think that was also important what you mentioned, Teacher Paula, trusting your child. I mean, it is difficult and it can be challenging at times, but you have to realize that it's literally like dropping off your child at school, di ba? Parang pag unang time mong gagawin yun,
Yeah.
natatakot ka or ayaw mong gawin, gusto mong magstay doon hanggang matapos yung klase. But eventually, you have to transition them and teach them how to be independent and learn on their own. So I guess
Yes.
it's a learned skill na kailangan din ng collaboration. And as we mentioned earlier, there are a lot of communities also that you could create to help with these kinds of situations. Now, another question, Teacher Paula, coming from Patrick Pleno naman. Can parents read their kids' school emails? Where do we draw the line? Ayan, what a difficult question.
Good question.
That's a good question.
Um, we often say that if especially if for the older kids kasi like in our case we tell the parents that if we email the child, we would often also let you know. We call your attention. Kasi lalo na kung naka-enroll siya sa K to 6, we don't give the confidence na marunong na siyang sumagot online or marunong na siyang mag-email, di ba? So, I mean, it's okay if you want to look at your child's email or your child's school email. After all, it's a school email. So, they're required to do academic things using their email and not leisure. But at the same time, we often tell our parents, lalo na dun sa mga nasa high school na yung mga anak, na don't worry, mommy and daddy, if we do not CC you in the email or we do not carbon copy you in the email, it's nothing to be worried about. But we encourage open communication. Madalas, ang magandang effective dito, na yung magandang pwedeng gawin ng mga magulang natin is this. They can really have a sit-down session with their child. Sila mismo yung mag-craft ng, on this day, titignan ko yung email mo. I want to know what you're doing. That's okay. We don't see anything wrong with that. Siguro, yung pinaka-ma-advise ko lang dito din, Joyce, is that have a talk with your child, especially if your child is already of age, no? Kung medyo older na yung child, nasa high school na, kasi medyo conscious na sila dun. Have a talk with your child and let them know your intentions, why you want to check their email, and having an agreement. Pag naintindihan din yun ng bata, tinuturo din namin ito sa aming mga klase. Pag naintindihan yun ng bata, bakit yun kailangan gawin ng parent? It's going to be a very fruitful school year, no? Not only to the child but even to the family, kasi we foster open communication.
Yeah, and being able to really just have that communication between the parent and the child, it also builds trust, 'di ba? Na parang alam nung bata kung ano yung nangyayari. This is just an adjustment
Correct.
that we have to make in this new environment that we're in. And they also know that their parents are doing it because the parents care and they want to make sure that they're
Yes.
safe and they're learning well. So that's a really
Yes.
good tip. Thank you, Teacher Paula. I think we have one last question before we move on to our final presentation. This time around, it's from Amy Jimentera, who says, with all these helpful tips, how can online class be more effective for our children? Do we have to be there during their online class because we are working parents kasi? Yan ang grand debate feeling ko, Teacher
Mhm.
Paula. Kasi syempre, di ba madaming mga parents na kailangan daw andun sa tabi ng bata. Meron mga
Oo.
nagsasabi na, paano kailangan ko magtrabaho? So, what can they do?
Okay, that's a very good question nga, Joyce. Kasi marami talaga yun nga, yung worry nila is may iwan yung bata, di ba? So, just like what Sir Gary mentioned, there is such a thing called Family Link app. They can download that and then they can also, may primer yun eh. Actually, pagpunta ka dun sa website na yun ni Google, may primer siya explaining to the parent what the Family Link app is, and at the same time, how can parents explain it to their children. Now, with regards to the setup naman, kung kailangan ba talaga laging may nakatayo sa tabi ng bata, yun nga, we advise that for the first few months, since most of us are work from home, or if not naman, have an adult facilitator. I'm pretty sure hindi maiiwan yung bata mag-isa sa bahay talaga. I mean, there would be someone who is older than the child, at least of legal age, to really take care of the student. So have someone for the first few months. Ako ang project ko dito as edtech, it's a bit about 2 to 3 months. 3 months, medyo ano na yun, medyo stretch na yun. Pero in a span of 2 months, I think well-adjusted na yung bata, and then pwede nang medyo iwa-iwanan. As long as an adult facilitator is within reach, then that's okay. Wag po nating iwanan ng mga anak natin mag-isa sa bahay.
Kailangan ng constant guidance. Depende na lang sa
Yes.
level, no, Teacher Paula. And I think you're right. It's
Oo.
also it also depends on the age of the child, 'di ba? Syempre may mga bata na kailangan forever andun ka talaga. You're really watching over your children, or you
Yes.
assign someone in the household to do that. But you're right. There's probably a timeline of 2 to 3 months kung saan pwede na siguro matutunan ng bata yung mga do's and don'ts, kumbaga, ng distance learning. Maraming salamat, Teacher Paula, for all of the tips and every insight that you've shared with us here this afternoon. I appreciate teachers so much. I feel like you guys are modern day
Thank
heroes.
you.
You do so much for the future of our children. And I'm so happy to learn about all the efforts that you're doing to make sure that distance learning for our children today is the best experience that we can give them with Google for Education. Maraming salamat po, Teacher Paula.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you so much to everyone who sent in their questions. I was so excited to hear your questions kasi nga naman po, kailangan ng mga parents natin to really start these conversations. Katulad nung sinabi ni Teacher Paula, we need to ask questions, di ba? So when we can ask questions to our teachers or sa mga admin ng school na mga na-enrollan ng mga bata natin, syempre kailangan natin gawin yan. And of course, learn through the tools that we've talked about here today and through webinars like these. Now, I'm so excited because we've got another presentation for you this time around. It's actually our last presentation, and it'll discuss a very important topic that I'm sure we're all wondering about: online child safety and protection. This is something that both parents and kids should listen to. So let's hear it from Google Philippines Head of Public Policy and Government Relations, Eves Gonzalez. Eves?
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Yves Gonzalez. I head Government Affairs and Public Policy for Google in the Philippines. and I'm honored to be giving the last presentation today on a topic that is super important, especially now that our kids are spending more and more time online for education and entertainment, and that topic is online child safety. Before we jump in, I'd like to share some information about myself and share with you why this topic is so near and dear to my heart. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. As you can see, I'm a proud father of two. The eldest is 5 and her nickname is Mouse, while the little boy is 3 and his nickname is Soy. Working from home, I currently have numerous roles with my family, from washing the dishes to doing the laundry, cooking their meals. But my favorite role is being the parent responsible for their digital needs. And this includes simple things like making sure their devices are always charged, to more complex things like deciding which content is okay and which content is not okay for them to watch. With that background, let's jump into discussing Google's holistic approach to online child safety. Next slide, please. At Google, we believe that technology can be a force for good, unlocking creativity, fostering expression, learning skills that help children and young people build their futures. At the same time, we recognize that technology can also be used to cause harm to people and to children in particular, with the potential to facilitate abuse and exploitation. We work hard to help protect children while also enabling them to play, express themselves, and learn online. We focus our efforts on three pillars. First is building innovative products. Products to be used to protect children and to be used by children and their families to provide them with more contained, age appropriate experiences and protections and help develop the family's balance that works for them. Second is putting in place extensive policies that enable us to respond to new and evolving trends online. And finally, by creating a program of global education that helps children build digital literacy and digital citizenship that will hopefully help them better navigate life online and offline. Next slide, please. It's important to emphasize that our work is guided by our collaboration with experts from around the world, including organizations such as UNICEF, ECPAT International, Thorn, and Internet Watch Foundation, among others. We recognize that we do not have all the answers and that often our partners have the expertise and experience to help us make our products even better. Next slide, please. So next slide, please. So we'll start with Family Link. So this was mentioned earlier. So Family Link is a free application that parents can download and install from the Google Play Store or the iOS App Store to enable them to have digital parental controls over their child's Android device. Family Link comes pre-installed on the latest Android OS, and we've also made available a Family Link guide online for families that can help parents set their digital ground rules. Next slide, please. So as a parent, you can keep an eye on your child's screen time by setting daily limits, app limits, and even scheduled bedtimes. So you can even give bonus time when your child does something that you want to reward. Using Family Link, you can also manage the kinds of content that your child can see. You can remotely approve downloads, in-app purchases, as well as block specific apps from your child's device. Now, for when we're able to go outdoors again, you can keep an eye on the location of your child's device, remotely lock the device, or for all the times that your child has lost their phone somewhere around the house, you can even ping the device. Next slide, please. The next product we want to highlight today is YouTube Kids. YouTube Kids is an app that's made just for kids, giving children a more contained YouTube environment that's simpler and more fun for them to explore on their own. YouTube Kids also makes it easier for parents and caregivers to guide their kids as they go on their journey of discovering new and exciting interests. Next slide, please. YouTube Kids enables parents to pick content setting that's age appropriate for their child, set up multiple profiles for each child. So for example, for my case, my kids are 5 and 3 and their YouTube Kids have individual profiles for them that give them age appropriate content that's suited for them. As a parent, you can also turn on approved content only. So this means that you approve every content that your child can see. You can set timers and also, more importantly, block specific content from your child's device. Next slide, please. So these are just some of the feedback that we've been receiving about Family Link and YouTube Kids, and we're super happy that parents are really appreciating the work that we're doing here. And this is exactly why we create these products for parents. Next slide, please. On digital well-being. So we've created an online resource at wellbeing.google, so that's wellbeing.google, that can enable families to tackle tough questions about tech. So this includes resources such as guides on how to have a productive discussion between the parent and the child that can help you identify the healthy digital habits that work for the whole family. So this was being mentioned earlier in the Q&A. And so we think that the digital well-being tools in wellbeing.google will be super helpful for that purpose. Topics include, for example, deciding when and how to use devices, determining when your kids are ready for their first device, using social media not only meaningfully but also responsibly, and as well as balancing online and offline activities. Next slide, please. And of course, Google for Education, which you've heard a lot about today. Google for Education is Google's commitment to providing learning tools to students at every stage of their education journey. So with G Suite for Education, Google Classroom, and Chromebooks. This is why there are currently over 100 million students and educators using Google Classroom, 140 million using G Suite for Education, and 40 million using Chromebooks. Next slide, please. So now we go to a very important subject, which is the policies. Next slide, please. So let's go one by one on how we take this on. So next slide, please. So safe search. By default, Google search is designed to not shock the user with our search results. But by turning on safe search, you as a parent can help filter out the most explicit results such as pornography. When you install Family Link, safe search will be enabled by default and cannot be disabled without the parent's permission. Next slide, please. On YouTube, YouTube's community guidelines prohibit harmful content such as harassment, cyberbullying, violence, or graphic content, and content that goes against child safety. Next slide, please. So as an example, in the first quarter of 2020, over 6.1 million videos were taken down from YouTube. Very important to note that 93% of those removals were machine detected. So this means that it was the system that detected it. On YouTube, human detection can also come from a user, a trusted flagger such as an NGO, or a government agency. We want to highlight on this slide that 90% of the videos removed for violating child safety policies were removed before they had 10 views. Next slide, please. So let's go on to the next topic. Next slide, please. So going now to identifying, removing, and reporting illegal child sexual abuse materials, or what we call CSAM, Google creates a unique fingerprint or hash for images, similar to what you can see now on your screen. So every image will have a particular hash that's attached to it. It is this hash or fingerprint that we use to identify and remove known CSAM content. Next slide, please. So on YouTube, this process of hash matching known violative content and reporting it to authorities is powered by YouTube's technology called CSI Match. This technology enables YouTube to identify known CSI content in a sea of innocent content. And then what CSI Match does is it's also available for free to NGOs and industry partners such as Reddit and Snap to enable them to use the technology to counter the spread of online child exploitation on their platforms. Next slide, please. So the next slide is the Content Safety API. So the Content Safety API, on the other hand, is a review prioritizer. So using this technology, our partners, such as NGOs and private companies, can be guided to prioritize content that has a higher probability of being CSAM materials. So this technology is very good for content that has not yet been previously confirmed as CSAM. So for example, you can imagine an NGO has to review 100,000 images. Instead of reviewing them randomly, the Content Safety API will tell them that these 7,000 images have a high tendency or look like they're CSAM. So why don't you prioritize and review this ahead of time? Next slide, please. So going now to the Technology Coalition. So the Technology Coalition is a US-based nonprofit that has been around since 2006. So the coalition currently has 18 member companies ranging in size and shape from companies like Google, Microsoft, Facebook, and Twitter to smaller startups. The coalition provides mentoring to upskill newer companies or build on expertise when these companies are launching new products. The coalition has created best practice guides and brought teams together around focus areas, for example, reviewer well-being. Individually, many of the coalition companies have created tech tools that are available across industries, including Microsoft with their Photo DNA, Facebook's Threat Exchange, and as well as Storm. Next slide, please. So now we go to deterring predatory behavior online. Next slide, please. So we make it easy to report behavior that you believe is exploitative of children. So using that link that I'm showing on the screen, you can actually easily report any behavior that you feel is violative of children's rights. Next slide, please. So on YouTube, so we've done a lot on YouTube to protect minors and families on YouTube. So just as an example, we terminate accounts when we believe that the user is less than 13 years old. We've also disabled comments on videos that feature primarily minors across the platform, as well as reducing recommendations on content that we feel are borderline violations of our policies. Next slide, please. Now, going now to protecting children's data, which is very important. So our transparent privacy policies are available for all users. And what we've learned is that these privacy policies are even better by putting animations, videos that really allow people to better understand and appreciate our privacy policies. We also twice a year encourage everyone, all of our users, to take a privacy checkup to be able to review your privacy settings within your Google account. Next slide, please. So on YouTube, it's very important for us to protect children's data on YouTube. So what we do is we will treat all data from anyone watching children's content on YouTube as coming from a child regardless of the age of the user. So what this means is we've also stopped personalized ads on these types of content, and some features will no longer be available on this type of content like comments and notifications. And what we do is creators who create content for children are also required to tell us when their content falls in this category. Next slide, please. And of course, G Suite for Education. I think a lot of our speakers today have talked about this. So basically, I just want to highlight how we keep your data secure. There are no ads in G Suite for Education core services. Our technology is compliant with industry best practices and industry regulations. And as well as, again, going back to you have a clear information about our privacy and security policies. Next slide, please. Now, going to the last portion of our talk for today. And so it's very important for us to emphasize that a big piece of our initiatives is on education, is on teaching children to really be able to more responsibly use the internet. So next slide, please. So as mentioned already earlier, so Be Internet Awesome is our global curriculum that actually allows kids to learn. The good thing about Be Internet Awesome is it's not just targeted at kids, but it's also inclusive of the teachers, the educators, as well as the families. So Be Internet Awesome is a 360 approach, and we're very proud of this program. Although we have not launched this in the Philippines, the key lessons and learnings from Be Internet Awesome are already included in our Philippine education initiatives. Next slide, please. And then, as mentioned by Eileen, there's training resources for educators online. So these training resources involve things like digital citizenship and safety. And so these are available for all educators to take them. So just go to g.co/digital citizenship course to be able to take these available courses that are free for everyone. Next slide, please. And then finally, of course, working with local partners. We acknowledge again that we cannot do this by ourselves. We do not have all the answers. And so we work hand in hand, not only with global partners, but also with our local partners in tackling the issues. You know, it can go from attending events to having really discussions on legislative proposals. And so we'd like to call out some of our partners like Plan International, IJM, Child's Right Network, each Peace Build Peaceworks, who is helping us on a lot of our education initiatives in the Philippines. So next slide, please. With that, thank you very much. And we hope that you had a good day full of lessons for everyone. So thank you for attending. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eves, for that presentation. You know, it's one of the most important conversations that we can have, right? Child protection and safety online, especially now that we're transitioning to distance learning. It's so, so important. So it's nice to learn about all those things. Some of those tools actually I already use for my little pamangkins, my nieces and my nephews, na lagi syempre nasa online na ngayon because they started their classes already. So I feel like that's really important. Now, I'm sure our parents have a lot of questions. So, we're opening the floor again for your questions, you guys. So, kung meron po kayong mga katanungan about child protection and safety for online, please do send them in already. Like this one from James Duran. Sabi niya, Eves, how do you engage the whole family at home when it comes to tackling the topic of online child safety and protection?
I think the answer to that starts with the relationship you have with your child, right? So, especially now that we're spending a lot of time at home, it's a very good opportunity to start building that relationship. And so it starts with asking your child about his or her likes, right? And then you build on having that good relationship with your child that you can actually graduate to talking about the more difficult discussions, right? So, for example, if my daughter watches content that I feel does not teach her good behavior, I will tell her. So instead of just saying, "Hey, don't watch that," I will tell her, "Don't watch that because that person is always shouting at other people or is not acting in a nice way." And so by engaging her not really as a child but actually as as a regular person, you can actually build that relationship that when you start talking about the more sensitive, the more difficult conversations, there's already a strong foundation wherein there's a mutual trust, there's openness and transparency, such that it doesn't become a difficult thing to start having those difficult conversations.
You're right. Communication is number one, right? It's really making your child or your children understand why you're doing a certain action. Kasi kung bigla mo na lang sabihin na, oh, bawal na yan, or tatanggalin mo na lang bigla without really explaining to them why that's not something that you want for them to maybe, learn or adapt into their own characters, diba? I feel like communication really is number one. So thank you, James, for that question. I feel like we still have so many questions here. As Eileen mentioned earlier, ang daming mga nanonood. So magandang hapon po ulit sa inyong lahat. We've got another question here from our social media accounts from Wina. Sabi niya, Eves, what are the other learning apps or games that you can recommend to kids and families? Dahil lahat tayo ngayon online na, do you have your own suggestions?
So on this one, first of all, on the Google Play Store, there is a section specifically that's meant for kids and education content. And so especially now, it's a good time to actually go through that and be able to discover a lot of games, whether it's a one-on-one game or games for the whole family. And actually for those with the Google Assistant, you can even ask the Google Assistant for some games that you can play with the whole family. So yeah, I think Interland, which was also mentioned as part of Be Internet Awesome, is something that a lot of kids enjoy. So that's our top suggestion. Go search Interland and be able to experience this because this is something that kids will really love.
Interland was also, I think, something that Eileen mentioned kanina, diba? That she really enjoyed din daw as an adult. So I feel like, it's also creating new bonds and new things that you can do as a family. So I think that's a really good question, Weena. I think we have another question here from, let me see, Paula Concepcion. There you go. Eves, she asks, how can you ensure that when you leave your kids alone, they will be safe and protected online, especially for parents who are working from home and are also busy in the things that they're doing at home.
So if there's one advice, it's really to install Family Link. So this one, as a parent, it really enables you to have a good visibility over the online activities of your child, and it gives you that peace of mind. So for example, you can automatically block websites that you don't want your child to be able to access, as well as even being able to monitor if your child is actually, let's say, spending time on the apps that you want your child to be spending time on, or on other apps that you don't want to be your child to be spending time on. So if there's one major takeaway, it's really to install Family Link, to download Family Link, and really get to know this application, because this really empowers parents to do a lot of things that help them have a little bit better peace of mind.
That's awesome. Eves, I have a question for you. As a parent naman, you're very well versed obviously with the technology and all the things that you need to learn about these things. But you as a parent, what have you been learning personally in adapting to this new normal that our children are learning in?
Oh, one surprise that my kid or my daughter came up to me and said is, "I'm tired of screen time." So I used to think that there's no such thing as too much screen time for kids, but they've also realized that, they themselves realized that there is such a thing as too much screen time, and they ask us to play things like taguan or the more traditional ones. And so that has been one of the best learnings or experiences, in that the kids themselves have chosen that there is such a thing sometimes as too much digital time, and they choose the more traditional games that has been, that we have forgotten, or we you and I, we grew up with those traditional games.
That's awesome. I feel like it's always striking a balance, 'di ba? Pag nasobrahan na yung mga bata sa technology or all these other things that we're learning, although they are awesome, kailangan din natin mahanap yung oras that we're bonding in different ways. That's a great insight. Thank you so much once again, Eves Gonzalez, for talking to us about online child safety and protection. Such an important topic, and we learned so much from you today. Thank you, Eves.
Thank you.
Awesome. At maraming salamat po muli sa lahat ng mga nag-send ng questions nila this afternoon. We had so many great insights from our speakers here today. And I might say also from our audience, sa ating mga parents who are sharing their own experiences and using these tools already. Diba? Siyempre, yung iba sa atin na una na sa school year sa pag-uumpisa ng mga classes. Meron din yung mga, nakita ko kanina, meron din silang mga YouTube tutorials daw on how to use these tools. So if you are watching out in the comment section of our social media accounts. I'm sure you have also learned from those people. So maraming salamat po muli to all of our parents and to everyone who tuned in here today. We learned so much from G Suite Primer for Parents to supporting and engaging families with distance learning, and of course, to online child safety. I personally think that we need to learn to adapt to this new normal, to be agile, and to really use all the tools that we can to give the best learning environment for our children. And you being here today para matuto po sa mga tools na to, para malaman ang mga tips ng mga speakers natin is one of the ways that we can all grow and adapt to this new normal. So we hope that you enjoyed today's webinar, and thank you so much for spending this wonderful afternoon with all of us. I hope you're coming away from this webinar packed with useful information and knowledge. As I wish you to stay safe and stay healthy, please wear your masks, wash your hands, and practice physical distancing at all times. Once again, this has been Joyce Spring Trevino. Happy weekend and bye bye, everybody.